Hey guys, what is going on? We are back on the Tier Maker website, and that of course can only mean one thing. We are ranking something here today, and that being the SMGs in the Season 3 Reloaded update. For whatever reason, we can't actually play the game today. My Battle.net launcher is basically just not letting me play the game. So we're just going to rank something instead on the tier list, and we do have all of the SMGs in the Vanguard Season 3 Reloaded update, including the brand new H4 Blixen. Just before we do get into it here though, we're going to talk about our tier lists and what they actually mean. The dumpster right at the bottom here, this is the tier you do not want to find yourself on. Weapon in this tier are very, very bad. Above that are not bad, or weapons that are usually situational, can only be used in certain situations, of course, not too good. Pretty good, again, a little bit better, basically middle of the road stuff, again, pushing it towards the top tier. Almost meta are weapons that do have maybe a specific flaw or something like that do make them a little bit worse than the top tier weapons. And of course, the meta, very tip top. These are the weapons that you definitely want to be using in the Season 3 Reloaded update in terms of SMGs. So the first weapon that we've got to take a look at here today is one of my absolute favorites, and that is the M1928. Now, this thing is an absolute monster. Nothing really changed with this thing in the most recent patch. I do believe they sort of messed around with some of the ammunition with this thing, but with our main build that we've presented previously, I believe we're probably going to do a class setup on this again because it's absolutely fantastic. But this thing is really, really consistent, basically gets you that 180 millisecond time to kill with no recoil at all, a massive magazine if you do take the 100 round mag, good sprint to fight. Like, this thing is just an absolute monster. This is one of those weapons that actually didn't get changed with like the smaller caliber rounds or anything like that too much, and it's still a fantastic weapon in the game. So we're going to put this at the tip top of the meta. At the moment, this is one of the best guns in the game. The M1928 is an absolute monster here. Next, we do have the MP40. Now, I'm sure a lot of you still absolutely adore this thing, and I really, really like it too. I believe if you are getting that 3-shot kill, you're getting about 180 to 190, 200 milliseconds worth of that time to kill. This thing is just a really, really consistent killer in this game. The magazine's not massive or anything like that, like the M1928. You do get about 30-ish rounds in the mag, which is still okay. You still can do a pretty decent work with this thing. I really do think this is, again, one of the better SMGs in the game. Consistent recoil, good movement speed stats, good handling stats, all those lovely things that we love with SMGs. You can still do fantastic work with the MP40. So again, we're going to put this at the meta tier behind the M1928 because I think it's a little bit worse because we can get the massive magazine with the M1928 here. Next, we do have the Owen Gun here, which of course is not a weapon that I have preferred in pretty much any of these tier lists previously, and nothing has really changed with this in my opinion. Just think this thing's really bad. I don't really like the magazines on top. Like, weapons that do have the magazines on top are always a little bit more complicated as you can't really see the right hand side of your screen, which essentially makes your weapon less usable. And of course, in the case of the Owen Gun, because it's a very slow firing weapon here, we can't get super fast TTKs. There was a small period of time where you could get a 2-shot kill with this thing. You did 50 damage per bullet, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So I'm actually going to put this in the dumpster. I really, really don't like the Owen Gun, not just because it's like not a very powerful weapon in terms of that TTK or damage stats or anything like that, but just because it's really, really hard to use because the magazine is on top of the gun, and that makes it pretty much unusable from the right hand side of your screen. The next one is one that I'm a little bit torn about here. We have featured this previously in a class setup, and that is of course the PPSH. This is one of the weapons that did get changed with its smaller caliber ammunition. I believe you can get a 3-shot kill with this thing at a ridiculously fast fire rate. It might not be a 3-shot, might be a 4-shot, but the fire rate really does carry this thing, allowing you to get 180 milliseconds worth of that time to kill value, which is so fantastic with this weapon. However, the recoil can be a little bit side to side if you do fire for any extended period of time, and again, it's one of those weapons that does almost push to be top tier. I think it's probably in between these two. Like, if we did have a tier that sort of goes in between these two, it would probably go at the top of that, but I think we're going to put this at the almost meta tier, very top of this one, because I think it could push to be one of the best guns in the game, the best SMGs in the game as well, if the damage range was a little bit better on this thing and the recoil after firing a few bullets wasn't sort of side to side shaky like that. So almost meta tier at the tip top, because the PPSH after the most recent buff is absolutely fantastic in this game. Now, an interesting one that again did get a little bit of a change semi-recently in one of the more recent patches, and that is the Sten. Now again, this probably would have joined the Owen Gun in the dumpster tier previously, but this thing is actually really, really usable right now. It's actually interesting how they did change this. I believe within the damage ranges, sort of like 15, 20 meters or so, I think off the top of my head, you can actually get a 3-shot kill with this now, meaning you do actually get a competitive TTK at about 180, 200 milliseconds, which is definitely way better than it used to be. It used to be like 250, 260 milliseconds, which is so slow. And again, when you are attack sprinting with this thing, it just gets in the middle of your screen. screen and it takes up so much. It's just not that great. But now it's really, really good. I don't think it's going to be pushing like top tier meta stuff or anything like that, but the fact that they have changed this quite significantly to make it a little bit better than it used to be, or actually a lot better than it used to be, and the Sten is now a better gun in this game. It's actually usable and it's actually fun to use. I'm going to put this at the bottom of the almost meta tier just because this could use a little bit more in terms of that damage number, that TTK push. It's still a little slow compared to some of the other guns. Maybe extend that damage range out a little bit more just so we can get more consistent 3-shot kills. But the Sten, baby, it's back. It is actually a decent gun in this game now, and that is super, super exciting here. Now, this is one that I'm actually a little bit lost on here. The Type 100 is something that I haven't used for a little while, but it used to be one of my absolute favorite SMGs in the game. You could get a 3-shot kill with this thing at about 900-ish rounds per minute, meaning you could get a ridiculously fast 140 millisecond time to kill. I haven't used this thing for a little while as they did nerf that fire rate increase that you could get from the Warabashi barrel. Now it's about 600, 700 rounds per minute, which definitely decreases that TTK, but I still think it does sit around 180-ish milliseconds in terms of the time to kill, meaning it's still a very, very good gun in the game. But again, I haven't actually used this thing for a little while, which is a little bit interesting here, so I kind of want to know where you guys would put this. Based on sort of the stats that I can think of in my head, it would probably go again in between the meta and the almost meta tier. I still think this is a very, very good gun in this game. I'm just not 100% sure exactly where I want to put this thing. Maybe at the bottom of the meta tier just because it did get nerfed sort of semi-recently with that reduction to its fire rate, but it's still a pretty competitive gun in this game. Like, you can still get decent TTK value and it's really, really accurate here. So I'm probably going to put this at the bottom of the meta tier and just be moving on with our day. But if you do think this is wrong or you think I should move it down, almost meta tier, pretty good tier or something like that, make sure you leave a comment letting me know where you think I should put this. Next, we do have the Welgun here, which again is another one of those weapons that did get completely dumpstered in terms of its recoil control, like semi-recently. It was a few patches ago now. They did make this thing very, very tough to control that recoil. And then again, this is another one of those weapons that did see an increase and a massive buff to its smaller caliber rounds. And when you do include those on the Welgun, you still get a very, very competitive gun in this game. Again, the TTK does sit around 180 milliseconds. You can't really get that 2-shot kill anymore super consistently. I think it can with the incendiary rounds, but again, that's sort of a little bit not really worth it. But again, the Welgun, still pretty decent. I'm actually going to put this in the sort of middle of the almost meta tier. I think, again, it's a little bit worse than it used to be after those recent nerfs. I think it's probably better than the Sten, maybe a little bit worse than the PPSH, as that is a faster firing weapon. Again, this used to be literally the best gun in the game, but now it's fallen off a little bit after the most recent changes. Next, again, is the Armaguerra, and this is a little bit of a tricky one here. Again, this is an SMG that does sort of push that damage range just a little bit further out, meaning you can sort of fight at medium distances a little bit more effectively. The only problem with this is really the TTK does sort of let this thing down slightly. Like, I think it sits at about 200, 210 milliseconds off the top of my head, which again, as we have mentioned in many, many videos previously, about 180 milliseconds is the milestone you want to hit, and outside of that, it can be a little slow. But again, the recoil is really nice with this thing. The iron sights are clean. It's got good movement speed value. So again, this is a little bit of a tricky one here as well. But again, just because that TTK is a little slower here, I think we could probably put this at the top of the pretty good tier, or again, somewhere around the Sten, maybe a little bit worse than the Sten, somewhere in this area here. Again, maybe a tier in between these two if we had one, but we don't. I'm going to put this at the top of the pretty good tier. Again, if you feel like I should change this one, let me know. And lastly, we do have the H4 Blixen here, which, as we did mention, is the most recent addition in the SMG category, and this is a very, very interesting weapon in this game. The damage range on this thing is basically the draw card. It's basically a sort of mini SMG hybrid assault rifle kind of thing. You can sort of get a little bit of extra damage range with this, fight at sort of 15, 20 meters or so. But again, that TTK is a little lackluster. It's about 200-ish milliseconds a game, which is a little bit slower for this game, but not too bad. Again, I feel like we should put this somewhere around this middle tier area, maybe a little bit better than the Sten, maybe a little worse, maybe above the Armaguerra. Again, somewhere in this area feels appropriate with this thing. It's pretty decent. It's not really a standout weapon as the TTK is a little bit slower than we would like in this game, but again, not too bad. Pretty consistent in terms of that recoil control. A very, very easy to shoot weapon. Again, movement speed stats, aim down sight speed stats. Actually, some quite good values in there with like your aim down sight speed being very, very fast here. Again, I feel like I'm going to put this in again in the almost meta tier, which means the SMGs are quite well balanced here. I think it might be a little bit better than the Sten. Again, let me know if you do think I am wrong here. But again, I feel like the SMGs are in a pretty good place at the moment. If you do think I have gotten any of these wrong here, or you think I should move some tiers, change some stuff around, maybe we could talk about that in the comments. Make sure you let me know. But again, I feel like the SMGs are in a pretty good spot after the most recent balance changes with the smaller caliber rounds and sort of changing some of the weapons. I feel like they are in a pretty good state at the moment. But again, if you did enjoy this one and it did help you out at all with your SMG decisions in Season 3 Reloaded, make sure you do hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on. I do very much appreciate it, and it really does help me out. Of course, we are still looking for 6,000 subscribers, and if you could help me achieve that goal, that would be absolutely massive. And again, thank you for watching this one, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye!